Welcome back to the Indusoft Web Studio video training series. In this video, we're going to cover screen groups as a concept and how to create the training template that we're going to use for the remainder videos throughout this training series. What we're going to do in this project is we're going to create a header, a navigation, and kind of a main screen area here. And while you don't need to do this, this presents a concept of screen groups and allows us to have a header that will have some status information on it, maybe a company logo, and that does not need to be swapped out for every screen. Similar to this navigation, we can put navigation buttons on here, and those will stay intact, and we don't have to recreate those on every single screen that we create. With this concept, we're going to put buttons, navigation buttons, on this screen. And every time we press one of those, it will change out the screen in this area, and we'll use that to work on different sections of videos. For example, we may have animation on a video. We'll press the animation button, and it'll open up the animation screen. We may have trends or alarms, and it'll open up the trend screen or the alarm screen. And these two areas here will stay on the screen, and again, we won't have to recreate those. So a concept that we're going to work with is that we're going to have these three screens opening as a group together, and then replacing this individual screen. Now, you don't have to do that. You can create a project where one screen fills the entire screen, and it does not need to be broken up into these three different kind of frames. And if you do that, that's a completely valid concept, but this makes your navigation a little bit easier. Now, sometimes too, people will put this navigation down across the bottom of the screen because maybe the industrial computer that they're working with has function keys below the screen, so you don't have to keep these in this orientation either. I'm going to make this 150 pixels tall and 150 pixels wide. Again, you can make that however you need to, but for this training class, if we stick with these different points, stick with the resolution that I'm going to use, that'll make things clearer and easier as we go along. Some conventions that we use in Indusoft Web Studio is that up in the upper left-hand corner, this first pixel is 0, 0 or x, y. And just a note, as we increase in the x direction, we go this way, and for the y direction, we increase in this direction. Notice that it's 0, 0 up in the top here, and as we increase, kind of counterintuitively, but it makes sense. A lot of graphics programs use this orientation. So keep those in mind as we get working. We're going to have 150 pixels tall. And notice here that the navigation is going to have to be 150 pixels below where the header is. So just as a note, this will be 0 through 149, or a total of 150 pixels. And the navigation will start at a 150th pixel down, or 151st pixel, but number 150. And this will be, this point here will be 150, 150. So let's swap back into our development environment here, and we're going to create a new project. I'm going to click on New. And if you have collaboration turned on, it's going to put you by default in the My Documents SCADA projects folder. If you don't have collaboration, it'll leave you in an Indusoft Web Studio version 7.1 projects folder. I'm going to change that because depending on permissions and how your computer is set up, you may or may not have access to where all that stuff is and how things work. So we're going to change this. We're going to browse. And what I've done before I started this video is I have gone up to my C drive and I have started a folder right off of the C drive. So if we go up here, you can see C, and then I made a folder called IWS71. Now right now that folder is empty, and I just did that in File Explorer and created IWS71. So I'm going to use that folder where my project is going to go. And here I'm going to call this IWS Training is the project. And now this project we're going to use through the remainder or most of the remaining videos. Here I'm also going to choose 1500 tag, which is the minimum tag license that we have. So if you have one, you at least have this of some sort. And with that, I can click on OK. And this will stop my previous project that I created in a previous video and create the new project. So up as we get going here. Now I have my resolution set for these training videos at 1024 by 768. And if your PC has a different resolution, which more than likely will, you will see that resolution here. what I'd like you to do is pull this drop down and choose the 1024 by 768 so we can have everything consistent as we go. Now your project may be different. In fact, on the Intusoft Web Studio blog, we have an article on how to choose the best resolution for your project, which I'd encourage you to read and take a look at. But for the sake of this project, we're going to choose 1024 by 768. And for your real-world project, once you learn Intusoft Web Studio, you may not find the resolution of your runtime PC here, then you can choose custom and go into that. But again, for this training series, we'll choose 1024 by 768 and then click on OK. That will set up the default size of the screens as we move along. What we're going to do now is we're going to insert a new screen. So I'm going to right-click on the word Screens here in the Graphics tab, and that's going to show me the default that I chose, which was 1024 by 768. I'm going to create that header first, which I'm going to keep as wide as the screen is, which is 1024, and I'm going to change the height of that to 150 pixels tall. It's going to start in the upper left-hand corner, which is 00. I'm going to leave everything else as default. I could put a description in here, main or screen, whatever. That will be for your documentation purposes only. In fact, I encourage using that, but for the sake of this training class, I'm going to typically leave those blank. So again, the only change that I made here was changing the height to 150. I'm going to click on OK, and you should see a strip that goes wide rather than tall. If you got one that went this way rather than this way, then you can right-click and go back into Screen Attributes and change the height to 150 instead of the width. Maybe that's what you did, but again, it should be 1024 by 150 there. Click on OK. Now what we're going to do is change the color of the background of this screen. Now you don't need to do this. You can leave screens white if you want to, but I'm going to right-click on the background and change background color. Now we could choose a color from the palette here, or we can edit custom colors, which might be nice if your customers have a particular color scheme that they like to use. You can add custom colors and contact the marketing department if you need the particular color scheme for the red, the green, and the blue, and the red, green, and blue color mixes, and that'll allow you to add custom colors into this. And you can import and export those and share those with your coworkers. So if you develop a palette, you can work with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose Fill Effects here, and this will give me a gradient fill. And for the sake of this training, I'm just going to choose a light blue at the top down to a white, let's say, and I can choose which orientation. Now notice these, let me choose a little bit darker color here so you can see this. In fact, let me even go to black. So I can choose the different orientation, vertical, diagonal, and we can even get conical. These will set up some nice, maybe for backgrounds of meters if you eventually need to use those. But for the sake of this class, I'm just going to choose a lighter blue to a white and say OK. And I'll choose that here. And now what I'm going to do is, this might be good to put a company logo on. So I happen to have imported the Intusoft company logo into Microsoft Paint. Now it's a big logo. It's one of our high resolution logos. So the first thing I'm going to do is go in here and resize this. I know that I want this about 12% and say OK. That'll reduce that to about that size. I can hit select, select all, and then copy that to the clipboard. Now I can go back to Intusoft Web Studio and right-click or hit Control-V for paste, and it'll paste that logo in there. Now this little extra handle here is wherever you want the transparent color to be. If I double-click on that and choose transparent, this is just a feedback from what color that is on. You cannot click on this. It doesn't do anything. It's just a feedback. So I'm going to move that little handle over to the white area here, and it'll make that transparent. And I'll put this logo kind of in the middle here, and then close this. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is put some status information here, and I want that available on every single screen. So I'm going to go back to the Graphics tab, and I'm going to place a rectangle in this area here. And now when I double click on the rectangle, I have the ability to change the border, the outline around this, whether or not it's a filled or unfilled background, and I have the ability to put a caption in here. Now if I just type text in here, this is text, that will be shown on that rectangle. Now I also have the ability to put tag names inside of curly brackets. Let's say I wanted to show the date, for example. I could put date in here, and inside of curly brackets, that's going to show the value of that tag during runtime. Now when I look at this and I click on OK, it's going to show up here as I typed it with the curly brackets around it. But when I run it, it's going to actually go into the system tags and grab the date tag, which will show the month, the day, and the year in that field. And in a similar fashion, we're going to use time, and we're going to use some of the other tags that are in here. The group high level that will show when we have security, the username, and things of that nature. We're also going to use some functions, the built-in scripting functions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off screen here, and I already have the rest of this stuff typed in. And I'm going to come back into here and paste it. And at this point, I'm going to zoom in here and show you so you can take a look at what this is. Now, the username here, this part, the computer IP, the group, and the high level is just text, like I just typed a moment ago where it said this is text. That's just raw text, and it absolutely does nothing other than show the text. But everywhere where I have curly brackets, either around a tag name, or in this case, it's get computer IP with an open and close parenthesis after it, that's a built-in Indusoft scripting function. It's going to get the IP address of my computer and display it in that field. The rest of these are tag names. So you can pause the video at this point and take a look at what I have here and go ahead and type that in, and unpause the video and come back and continue on. When you're back, you can just click on OK here, and you should see all of that show up in that rectangle. Don't worry if the rectangle maybe is not as wide as it needs to be, and if some of this text is being a little bit cut off, because it will get a little bit reduced during runtime as far as what is shown in here. So now I'm going to scroll over to the right, and depending on your resolution of your computer that you're developing on, you may not have to scroll, but because I've reduced this for the video, I'm going to scroll it over here. And what I now want to do is come over here to the Graphics tab, and under Symbols, not project symbols, but the symbol library, I want to double click on that, and then open up or expand System Symbols, and then go to Buttons. Now I'm going to put 6 buttons or so on the screen, and to make it a little bit easier to use and work with, I'm going to put the Exit button in the upper corner. Now if I single click, you'll see the cursor change on your mouse. I can then go open up the screen and place that on my individual screen. Now there's another way to use this. I can open up the symbols again, and I'm going to scroll down. The next one I'm going to look for is Log On. I'm going to use the Logon 02 so we can log on to the security system when we get to that. You can also double click, and it'll jump you back to that screen and paste it. That's a convenience function. And there's yet another way to do this. I can open up the symbols again, and I can split screen this. I can right click on this and say New Vertical Tab Group, and it'll leave my symbols here and my header screen over here. I can scroll down to the next button that I want is Database Spy. And while I can't copy and paste, I can click on that and select it and come over here and paste it. And notice that my symbol library stays open. I can then go down to the next one that I want is LogWin. Database Spy and LogWin will give us some troubleshooting features. We'll open up the runtime version of the Database Spy and what's also output window. Remember from previous videos, the LogWin is actually the output window for runtime. The next thing that I want to put up there is Notepad. Scroll down here. We should find, it's actually a little bit higher up here. There's Notepad. I can place that here. And don't forget, you can position these after you place them. And eventually down here, I want to go to, I think it's called Hyperlink. It's really the default web browser. If your default web browser is not Internet Explorer, we'll want to make sure that we open that up when we get to that section. But we're going to use, eventually going to use Internet Explorer there. So I'm going to close the symbols now, and you should have the Exit button, Log On. I happen to use Logon 2 button. Database Spy, Logwin, Notepad, and Web Browser, or Hyperlink, I think is what the button is called. At this point, I can save this screen. I have the option to do a Control S, or I can right-click and click Save. And several times throughout this video, or more often than not, I will typically just close the screen and let the system prompt me for it. When you close it, it's going to recognize, oh, we've added some things or changed the color of the screen. Do you want to save it? Yes. And we're going to save this as header. And you do not need to add the .scr after this. So we're just going to use header, click Save, and now that has saved that screen. You can see there is header. And the next one I'm going to do is insert the navigation. And if you remember back from our PowerPoint template, it's going to be 150 pixels wide. And the height, now because of that position, we got to move it down below where the header is actually at. So we're going to move the top position of that down by 150 pixels, and the left is still going to stay across the left edge. But because we have that 150 pixels, we have to subtract 150 from here, and that is going to be 618. I could type. There we go, 618. Click on OK. Now it's going to show up in the upper left-hand corner, but really when during runtime, if I right-click here and click on Screen Attributes, it's going to move it down to that 150 position. Now here I'm going to change the background color again, and we'll just make this one a solid light blue here. And I'm going to place one button on the screen that I'll eventually will use for navigation. I'm going to come back and reconfigure this, but don't make this button really tall, because we're going to end up creating a bunch of these. So I recommend, if we go take a look at the format, that you make this roughly this size, 131 wide by 51 tall. You can change these, but this will stick nicely in our grid. But if you use this, this will allow us to get 2 lines of text on here if we need it, and it's small enough that we won't run out of space and have to create another menu. You can come back and resize these later on if you didn't follow this. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and save this screen here, and we're going to save this as navigation. And again, you can choose during your projects, you can choose any naming that you want to, but for the sake of this class, why don't you stick with these names, such as header, navigation, and we'll make sure that everything will work properly. Click on Save. And now we have those 2 screens. Now we want to create that kind of main workspace area. But before I create the main screen, excuse me, before I create the main screen, what I want to do is create a template that I can use throughout the rest of this project. So I'm going to insert by right-clicking here, insert a new screen, and I'm going to position that down 150 pixels and over 150 pixels. And that's going to give us the, let me go back to the presentation here, that's going to move this screen down to this point here. And now I have to subtract off 150 pixels from each side. So this will be 874 and again 618. And that will set up that space to be below the header and offset from the navigation. Now I want this template screen to be kind of lightly colored. And what we're going to do is change the background color. And when I say lightly colored, I want some color to this, just so I can differentiate it and show you during the training. But you can choose any color schemes that you want to. Now I'm going to choose a lighter color rather than a darker color, because my default text is going to be black for this. Now you don't have to stick with this, but the initial way to do this and to keep a high contrast for your users, might be nice to have a lighter color or white as a background and have black text on it. So I'm going to choose that. And now that I've changed the color, I can save my screen. If I have done nothing to change this screen, it won't let me save it, or won't allow me to save it at all, because it doesn't notice anything has been changed. So I'm going to save this, and in this case I'm going to save this as header. Scratch that, sorry. I'm going to save this as template and save that. So now we have header, navigation, and template. And what we're going to do every time we create a new screen is we're going to open the template screen and go up here to the File menu and click on Save As. And that will keep all the coloring and positioning that we set up in that template. And now I can save this as main and save. and now it will have saved that as the main screen, leave us on the main screen, and we don't have to go back in and change all the sizing and coloring every time. Now that we have the main screen, I can open up the navigation and change the text on this button to be main, and I can add a command animation to it. If I click on this button here, it is the same as going up to here and clicking on command either way, and it'll apply the command animation to that button. So now that we've labeled it as main, this is a label only. Let me go back here. This is a caption that is just text. It provides no functionality. If I go back to the command here, by default it shows us VBScript, but I can choose built-in language, VBScript, open screen, close screen, and set, reset, and toggle tags. Here I'm going to choose the open screen, and here I can type in the word main, but just to make sure that I don't make a mistake, I'm going to choose it from the list of saved screens. So I'm going to choose main here, click on open, and we allow you the flexibility to type in your own screen name. Maybe you haven't created that screen, but if you mistype it, it won't find it during runtime. So when we create new screens, we're going to open up the template, save as a new name, and then come in here and change two different things. The caption on the button, and then the command that it opens a screen, and then we'll pull from the list of screens that we've saved. If we forget to do that, we won't have a way to get to the screen. So I'm going to close this, and eventually we'll copy these buttons down, and it'll retain all that configuration, and we can just change those two different things. So I'm going to save the navigation. Yes, so I'm going to save the main screen, and at this point we should be ready to run our application, but we do have to do one more thing. Let's create a group out of these three screens that we want. So we're going to go here to Screen Group and right-click and Insert, and I'm just going to single-click on the header, and I don't have to hold the Shift key down like in some programs, the main and the navigation. I'm not going to choose the template because that's a kind of a background thing that I want to use but not open. And I'm going to click on the name field here. I'm going to call this Startup. Now the name Startup is not relevant here. I just happen to have chosen Startup. It does not mean that it will be the startup screen. That's set somewhere else. So I'm going to we just want to make this obvious so anybody that looks at the application can think, oh, that's the screen that starts up. So I'm going to click on OK. And now that we have this screen group here, just break this open here and you can see those three screens in there. I can right-click here and set as Startup, and it'll make that screen group as the startup. Now this is a shortcut method. If you ever need to open up somebody else's project and figure out which screen is the startup screen group or screen, you can click here on Project and go to Viewer, and the startup screen is listed right here. So a shortcut way is to right-click on it to set the startup, but you can go under here, Project Viewer, and get to it too. Say OK there. And now we have everything that we need to start our project, and we can go here under Local Management, or we can go up here to the Quick Access toolbar and click on Run. And the runtime that pops up will then show our header, our navigation, and our main screen area. And eventually we'll add more buttons to this. Now a few things that we need to talk about. Let me exit this, it'll prompt us, is the screen opening and closing. When we added on the navigation screen the button for open screen, notice we didn't have to choose anything for closing screens. The main screen, if we open up the main screen here, and we'll right click and click on Screen Attributes, that's how we get back to this setup here. Also, when you're on the Graphics tab and you have a screen open, you can click on this button here in the ribbon, and that will open up the screen attributes as well. This replace partial, there is several different types of screen styles or screen types that we have, and I'm going to go up to the help system here and right click on the choose the context sensitive help, click on the screen, and this will show us the screens. And when we go to the Screen Attributes dialog, if we scroll down, this will list out the different screen styles. Excuse me. You can see that the Replace Partial opens the screen and closes all other of the Replace and Pop-up style screens. This is the default screen. Now, we plan on adding, I believe, a little bit more details in here for version 7.1. This is 7.0 help. But really what this is saying is that it automatically closes and automatically does the housekeeping for you if the screen overlaps on top of the other screen, even by 1 pixel. So it automatically does that housekeeping for you. Let me show you what I mean by that. We have these screens not overlapping at all. And if I choose the main screen and I move it up by just even 1 pixel to overlap, maybe you have your math wrong or something, and I choose 149, what it will do is it will overlap 1 pixel up into the header area. And when I run this, what you will see is this little section right in here. You can see that 1 pixel has overlapped in the header, and it has automatically closed the header screen. Now this is a convenience feature as an advantage if you have, let's say, a full screen, whatever new screen that you open, because it's overlapped even by 1 pixel or the whole screen, it has closed that screen that is behind it. And now I don't have my exit button, so how do I get out? Well, standard Windows functionality, I can hit Alt and F4, and that will close the current focus application. I can then go back into my main screen, right-click on it, change the screen attributes, put this back to 150, and say OK. Now, when I run this application, notice I have all of my screens closed. When I run this, it will open up all my screens in that screen group. Actually, it opened them up before, but it had closed the header once the main screen opened. Now, something else to point out here is, as a convenience feature, if you happen to have a screen open and you're working on it, let's say you have the main screen and you've added something on the screen, and you save it. Let's just right-click on this and save it instead of closing it. If you have a screen open and you're working on it, and you hit Run, it will open that screen only, kind of as a convenience way, so you can see, oh, that screen is working the way that I think it is, and it doesn't have to open up all the other stuff. If you want your entire screen group to open, and again, I'm going to hit Alt F4 on my keyboard here, you have to save and close your screens, have everything closed, and then the startup screen or screen group will start up. In this case, our startup group will show up here. So one more quick thing, and then we'll be done. There is an alternative method for laying screens out. Now, I've manually typed in those numbers into the screens. I can go here under, where's it at? Sorry. If I open up a screen, let's say I open up the header, the main, and the navigation. If I open up all those screens, there's an icon up here called Layout. And that opens up an alternative view so you can see how those screens all match and interact with each other layout-wise. I can, in here, move those screens, and it prompts me if I want to change the position in the screen attributes, or I can resize these screens by using these handles and change the size of the screen. And that's an alternative method to doing this layout. Some customers have asked us to do it this way. It will then, in fact, change those numbers in your screen attributes. So there's some different things. We're going to work with this group of screens from here on out in the rest of the training videos, and we've created that foundation. Hopefully you found this useful and understandable, and thanks, and have a great day.